Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. We talk all the time, folks, about how loud and crowded the digital world is. So you need professionals like the folks at Oak City Tech to help you get your message to your current clients and, more importantly, future clients. So if you go to oakcitytech.com, tell them what you're looking for. I know Drago and his team will be able to help you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. We have 31 chapters and about 520-ish members each week getting together, and our goal is to help everybody else grow their business. And today we're moving a little bit south to our friends in Fayetteville. The Hall of Famers chapter, Libby Woolcock, who is the vice president, incoming vice president as of 2 days ago. We'll talk about that in a minute. She is with the group. It's Hall of Famers. So if you want to understand the humor in that group, it's FAYMERS. And they meet Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. online. Libby, how are you today?
I'm fabulous.
Survived the storm and everything over the weekend?
We did,
All right.
thankfully.
All right. So Libby is with Comparion Insurance. They are a Liberty Mutual company. So it's actually perfect timing that we have you on, and we'll get into that in just a minute. Your chapter is one of the few that decided to stay on Zoom. Why was that, and how's it going so far?
It worked for us. So it's going great. We are growing. We are actively still passing business. We are moving and shaking. So it's going great for us. We still do our socials in person, where we meet, once a month or so in person and rub elbows and kiss babies, because we're still having babies. We had a new baby that was born in our chapter just this month. We are excited to meet him. But we are still meeting every week on Zoom, and it works for us really well, I think.
I get on quite a few Zoom calls for different reasons, and your chapter, and I've told you guys this publicly, I'm amazed at the way you can get 28 plus people involved in a conversation in open networking. I was just amazed by it the first time on there. I get it now, having been on a few, but your group, I mean, everybody's jumping in with a comment or a shot about this topic of the day.
I always laugh about it because I always say I feel like we look like the Muppet, on Zoom screen. And I'll say I'm relatively new to this chapter. This chapter has been around for, I don't know, 15 years at least. And I jumped in this last year. And they welcomed me with open arms. That was one of the reasons why I said, this is my chapter, right? This is the one I need to be in, because the cohesiveness of this chapter and the family feel of this chapter is, you walk in, you just know that you have a group of people here who want to be here, who want to support each other's businesses, and who want to work with and for each other. And I think that that's part of what makes our group so unique and makes it work so well.
What made you get into BNI, and why that group? What clicked there?
Initially, I started at BNI in Kentucky. I'm a military spouse. And so I started and founded a chapter in Kentucky when we were stationed at Fort Knox. And I saw the value there of building these chapters out and seeing the referrals. I saw a lot of business that was grown there. And so when we got orders to come to Fort Bragg, I said, I need to find a BNI chapter. And so I started looking, and it just so happened that here in Fayetteville, this seat was open. And so it was the second one that I visited, and I said, this is it. It was that open networking like you're talking about. That I said, this is it for me. I need to be part of this chapter. And so I immediately put in my application. I was like, gosh, I hope the fact that I don't know anybody in Fayetteville, I know like 2 souls in Fayetteville, does not deter them from accepting my application. But I think that they saw, this girl's been in insurance for a real long time, and she's going to start knocking on some doors, and she just needs a network to start passing business. And they accepted me.
My wife is an Air Force brat. So her mother is a military wife, and her sister is a military wife. Her husband was a C5 nav. And it's an interesting life because what does your husband do in the military?
My husband works in special ops.
Okay. So gone a lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could say that.
Okay, good. All right. It's interesting that you're always on call, and what I learned is you gotta be pretty organized, especially when you throw family into it, and kinda almost be ready to move whenever they say, "Hey, you're moving."
We got 21 days from, hey, you're going to this place to be there this time. Last time it was 10.
Okay.
So
Do
you are right on the money
Oh,
there.
yeah. Logistics, you better be good at, and you better be good at, "All right, that's what's happening today." So,
Yes.
you knew that going into it when you met Chris, right?
No,
Ah,
no.
ah.
I met my husband when I was 12 years old. And we actually did start dating when I was 12 years old. We dated for 3 months and he dropped the L word. And I was like, oh, I am not prepared for this. And so I broke up with him. And then about 2 years later, we were like, oh, I think I like you again.
Yeah, yeah.
Mind you, I was in high school at that point,
There you go.
the sophomore, and
Right.
yeah, same thing. Dated him again for 3 months. And he was like, hey, I think I love you. And I was like, I am not prepared for this. And so I broke up with him. And then a couple years later, I got a new phone and I get a text message. Hey, what's up? I'm like,
Who
what
dis?
everybody does. New phone, who dis, right? And he says, it's Chris. How many Chris's do you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, like a bajillion. Okay. So I'm like, as soon as I send back Chris who, I'm in the living room with my mom and I'm like, oh my God, it's Chris Woolcock. And I get back Woolcock. I'm like, oh.
Oh, that
Next
yeah,
thing I know, we're
yeah.
out on a date and the rest is history.
There you go. So how many places have you lived in?
We lived in Houston and then Lowell and now Fort
Alright, and do you have any
Um,
idea how long you'll be here?
we should be here for the rest of his career,
Oh,
ideally.
good, okay, alright.
Yeah. But when we got married, he was not a soldier. He
Ah.
decided 5 years into our marriage that this was his calling. I had a 4-month-old at home and he texted me and said, I think I want to join the army.
Yeah,
I was like, you think you want to what? What? And next thing I know,
yeah.
he's swearing in and joining the army.
Mhm.
No, he had my full support, obviously.
Good,
And it's been one of the best decisions we've ever made for his career and our family.
good.
And it's been a fabulous ride, but it was definitely not something that when I said my vows that I was like,
Mm,
yeah, this is going to be a part of our marriage. And it's going to be a part of our lives.
why not? Getting back to the insurance world, your industry is one of those, insurance, blah, 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 stuff, whatever. I got it. I have no idea what I've got until you know you need it, which is kind of when a big old storm comes through, whether it's a hurricane or the aftermath of. What Okay, now we've had one come through the area. What do we now need to make sure we have in our policy should another one come through?
I think at this point, we need to make sure that your home insurance has the right rebuild cost. That's the first thing I look at when people ask me to check their insurance policies for their homes. Do you have enough insurance? Or do you have the right amount? So I always call it the Goldilocks method. Not too hot, not too cold, just right, right? Not too much, not too little, just right. And the reason for that is because you don't want to be paying for insurance that you're never going to be able to use. That's having too much. And you don't want to have too little because then you won't have enough to rebuild your home at a total loss. The other thing is you want to look and make sure that you have a policy that's called an open peril policy. Perils are things that cause damage to your home. Think about lightning, hail, hurricanes, fire, those types of things. An open peril policy is one that is going to cover everything that could ever happen to your house, with the exception of the regular exclusions. Those are things like flood, earthquake, war, neglect, wear and tear, those types of things. Most policies will exclude specific things on them, and they're usually a short list if you have an open peril policy. The other thing is you want to make sure that you have what's called replacement cost coverage on your policy.
Yep.
And that pays to replace whatever was damaged to the same like, kind, and quality that it was before. When I talk about this particular coverage, I oftentimes use my Instant Pot because I will say I am an Instant Pot aficionado chef. Okay. If you want to come to my house and you want to eat dinner, it's probably coming out of an Instant Pot. And if it's not coming out of an Instant Pot, it's coming out of an air fryer, because that's the only way I'm getting dinner on the table. I'm a working mom. I'm
Yep.
busy. That's
Yep.
how it's happening. And so to say that my Instant Pot has seen better days would be an understatement.
Okay.
And when you go and you have a claim on these things, the insurance companies will usually come in and pay what's called actual cash value. And that's going to be like what it would cost at a garage sale, what it's worth right now after you used it and you've banged it up and you've made like God knows how many pots of mac and cheese in it, right? Those Instant Pots are usually like $120. They're not cheap. But in the way that mine sits right now, somebody might pay me $20 for it because it's seen better days. You want the replacement cost, because I need Amazon to come bring me one tomorrow or my family's going to starve. That's going to cost $120.
Okay.
The difference between those two is the replacement cost. Buy that endorsement.
Yeah.
That's a big difference after you've paid your deductible. You don't want to pay your deductible and then have to go buy and pay that gap between actual cash value and replacement cost.
Should we walk through our house and video what we own, everything, or just make a list of TVs and jewelry and things like that? How do we track all this?
If you know a storm is coming, like we knew Hurricane Ian was coming, I do recommend, go videotape everything, get the serial numbers, take an inventory of everything that you can. Are we going to do that on the regular? No. You're not going to say, oh, I bought this new shirt and I need to take an inventory of that. I just had a birthday party. Let's take an inventory of all my gifts. That's strange. But, we generally have an idea of the big basic things in our home. When you have a large claim where everything is gone and you have to replace every single thing in your home, that's where it gets very difficult to remember. I had a cheese grater. I had, this toothbrush. I had all of these iPhone cables, right? Those are things that go unnoticed until you're like, oh, I needed to replace that. And so, yes, having a video of everything in your home is helpful. But at the end of the day, if you have a complete and total loss, a lot of times they just cut the check for policy limits, so that you can just go out and rebuy it.
Yeah. And I think where we all get into trouble, of course, I won't confirm or deny if I fall into this category, is what's boxed up in our garage and what's boxed up in our attic. And
Yep.
couldn't tell you 3/4 of the boxes. It's labeled, but I couldn't tell you exactly what's in there.
A lot of things also people don't consider is stuff that's in storage off site. You may or may not have coverage for that depending on your policy. So that's another thing to bring up with your agent.
Okay.
Yeah. That's policy dependent.
Wow. And then rebuild if you bought the house at 300,000 7 years ago and it's worth 415 today, if you buy the right policy, do you get reimbursed at 415 or 300?
Depends. That would be the replacement cost value, right? And it depends on what the house is worth. Are you talking? A lot of people, when they buy their house, they bought with land, right? We don't insure the land.
Right.
That land is going to be there regardless of whether, Auntie Em takes the house away. So a lot of people will say, oh, well, my house is worth $415,000. Well, the real estate that you bought was worth $415,000, but that also included the land with it. So you also have to think about those things. So when I sit and I counsel with my clients, I look totally just at the structures on the house. The personal property inside of it, which is stuff, that is a formula that follows how much the structures are worth. So all of that is totally dependent on what the structure is worth.
But if it costs $415 to rebuild the house tomorrow, is that what you get? Am I asking this question right?
Are you asking, does the policy change automatically based on rebuild cost?
But yeah, or an appraisal cost. Yeah, I guess I am.
It depends. Only what the policy pays out is what's on the policy. So that's why it's important to stay in touch with your insurance agent. If you have $350,000 on the policy, but your house actually costs $450 to rebuild,
okay,
you're only getting $350.
Gotcha. So annually check in with your agent?
I tell my clients every other year.
Okay.
Yeah, because it doesn't normally change every year. The other thing is people have life changes, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Not only does the cost of goods and services change, but I just did a major renovation on my kitchen. Some
Mm.
people do that, every other year. Some people may redo their kitchen 1 year and their bathrooms 2 years after that. So those types of things do impact the rebuild cost on your home. The other thing is you may have a new job, you
Yep.
may have more wealth, you may have other things that impact the way that your homeowner's insurance needs to protect you in liability situations. All of those things are things that you need to speak to your insurance agent about, because it's not just how do we rebuild your home, it's how do we protect all of the assets that you've accumulated.
Yeah, and I think we all fall into the category of, "Oh, I didn't tell you that we redid our kitchen, did I, Libby?"
Yeah. Oh, I
So,
didn't tell you we got that trampoline. Oh, I didn't tell you we got the puppy. Oh, we got a
my
pool too.
my favorite, and I've heard this story before from other insurance agents, my favorite is, "Oh, yeah, we sold that car 9 months ago."
Yeah, I have had, oh, we sold that house a year and a half ago. And you're like,
Oh.
oh,
That's
okay,
yeah, so that's kinda something.
cool.
You have a question, Amnon?
Yeah. Two things. First of all, I want to go back to what Mike asked you. So, what is "quote unquote" replacement cost if the policy says 350, but the house now to rebuild is 450? So, why would they only pay 350 if it's replacement cost?
Because you're only insured up to the 350,000 limit. So
Okay,
there's a limit of insurance.
so it's not really replacement cost as of today. It's whatever
Yeah.
the top of the policy. Okay. Now, what happens in a case like ours, like with that storm? You have your car parked in the driveway and a tree falls on it, and the car is not new, so you don't have full coverage on it. Does homeowners take care of that? No.
No, no. And the tree's another thing we'll come back to, but the car itself would be covered under comprehensive coverage if it were covered. That's another thing. You can carry comprehensive coverage without carrying collision coverage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
Comprehensive
right.
coverage is typically very, very inexpensive,
Right.
particularly on older vehicles. So that would be things that typically happen while the vehicle's not moving. So things like lightning, theft, vandalism, hail, trees falling. The only thing I think that happens to the vehicle while it's moving is if you hit an animal while it's alive. That would be considered comprehensive.
Mhm.
And I have been told that, and I think I remember this right, that if you see that deer coming across the interstate or across the road, hit the deer, because if you swerve and wreck your car, that's a different conversation. Do I
Yeah, I
rem
mean, and also like more often than not, it's safer just to hit the deer.
Yes. Yes.
Um, most most driving instructors will tell you just hit the deer. It's safer for you just to hit the deer.
Mhm. Sadly, but yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that
Interesting.
is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, we want to save people.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
And so let's go back to the tree. My favorite question is, okay, it's your neighbor's tree that fell on
Yeah,
your
a lot of
car.
people have that question. My neighbor's tree fell on my house. Are they
Yeah.
liable?
Yeah.
Right? There's that conversation. Um, if the tree was healthy, most of the time people will say it's just your insurance. Like if the tree was healthy and it was lightning, hail,
Yeah.
wind, your insurance is going to handle it on your property. If the tree was not healthy, and you've like had the conversation that the tree needs to be removed and they've been negligent and not removed it, there's a lot to prove there that you could sue them. That then potentially, but that's a very, very heavy burden to
Mm.
prove.
And costly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Very heavy burden to prove.
yeah. The other thing I've learned from insurance agents, and this is for everybody watching today, when was the last time you heard from your insurance agent as we grade what makes a good insurance agent?
Yeah. And I will say that is a difficult conversation to have because as insurance agencies become larger and larger, it's more difficult to have those conversations. The other thing is that a lot of times people don't want to be bothered when
Yeah.
their insurance policies are fine.
Yep.
Right. So a lot of times it's just an email where we say like, hey, thanks for your business. We're renewing your policies. Some people really don't want to hear from us unless there's a problem.
Yeah, but what
Uh,
I like is the email just to it makes me stop and think, did we add anything?
mhm,
Or did we, you know, or did we sell anything? So I don't mind the email because I see the header pop up. It's like, all right, no, same cars, same house, same, and just kind of makes us go through a mental checklist. So from that standpoint, I'm
right.
okay with that.
Right. And in my agency, when we have renewals, I send out an email that says, hey, your policy is coming up for renewal. Here's a checklist. Have you had any of these changes in the
Yeah.
last year? If you have, please send them back to me. And if you need to have a renewal review with me, here's some time that you can schedule for it. And we do that with my agency. I will say probably 90% of my clients don't schedule time to review their policies just because they don't need to make any changes, but the option's always there.
Well, and we see the new kitchen every day, and after a while, we're used to seeing it as part of life,
And
and
it's
we
not new.
forget, right? But and then we forget to tell. It's like, oh gosh,
Mhm.
that's right, we did do that. I forgot,
Right.
because
Right.
throw in kids, 2 jobs, this, that, or the other, COVID, stuff like that. You're like, oh yeah, that's right, we forgot to tell you.
Right. And then you're like, oh, well, the puppy, he's fine. He's not a puppy anymore.
Yeah.
And we got through the stage where he's eating everybody's shoes. Maybe we don't need to insure him anymore.
Yep. And I've had a couple of insurance agents on, and I see if I phrase this question the correct way without getting you in trouble on anything. What is the most unusual request you've had to insure something?
Huh. I guess the most unusual one, I have been able to insure a Super Bowl ring. That was pretty cool.
A Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, that was cool. That's my coolest story that I've not been able to do again.
Whose ring?
I don't get to share that.
Nice. I like it. I'm good with that. That's cool.
I
Now,
mean, it's unusual, right? Like you don't
yeah.
get to do that very often.
Now, so was there a lot of homework you had to do on that for comps?
No, because they actually do give an appraisal with the ring.
Oh,
So that was
nice.
very easy to do, but I was shocked because I was like, you don't have this insured?
Yeah. The smart ones do. Yeah. Oh, very
He was like,
cool.
no, I don't have this insured. I probably ought to. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's kinda yeah, yeah. You want that replaced if something happens, yes. Oh, very cool, I like that. Alright, so you and I share a number of connections to the state of Texas. So, I'm gonna start with you got your Bachelor of Art degree in marketing at Texas State.
Yes. Beat him
Now,
up.
I'm gonna take issue with that because my wife went to Southwest Texas State.
Well, she must have partied a little more than I did.
Well, she was there a little bit before you were too, and yes, she did party a great bit there because it was a good school. For those who don't know, it's in San Marcos, Texas. My wife graduated just about an hour or so earlier than you did, Libby. We'll just leave it at that, okay? And it was Southwest Texas, and they later was that in the 2000s or
It
the
was
late
in the
90s?
2000s.
Okay, when they
Yes.
changed it to Texas State, I guess they thought if we need to get a direction off of our name so people will take us more serious, but she refuses to call it Texas State. So,
Yes. There is a
yep.
heel digging that goes on with Southwest Texas grad.
Yes.
Because yeah, I understand. I would I
Mhm.
would be upset about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I can understand.
it's in San Marcos, Texas, between San Antonio and Austin. It's in the foothills. And yes, there are hills in Texas. I did not know that till I moved there.
It's the hill country.
It is, yeah, excuse me, the hill country, and it is beautiful there. Now,
Yeah.
my wife also tells me you can tell a senior co-ed at Southwest Texas State because the size of her calves, because you walk so much up and down
It's
hills.
accurate.
And Amnon's laughing, but a woman told me that, so I'm repeating only what a woman told me.
Okay, I will share a story with you that she will laugh at this. I had a class I guess my junior year of school, that I had to take Spanish for my foreign language, and it was in the education building. And I was at the bottom of the education building, and my class was on the third floor of the education building. And I had to go from the education building all the way across campus to the business building. And from the bottom of the education building to the top of the education building was 3 floors.
Okay.
And I did not realize this, but I was going up the hill to get to like across campus.
Mm-hmm.
There was an elevator that you could take from the bottom to the top of the education building, and it would take you those 3 floors. But I was going up the hill the entire semester to get across the floors. So that, yes, I had great calves because I was walking that hill
Yeah.
every
Yep.
single, like, 3 times a week.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. She loved going to school there. She had a blast, and it is in a beautiful part of the country.
It's got a special place in my soul.
Yep.
I'm sure she shares it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And her sister ended up going there, which is where her sister met her husband. And then their oldest daughter went there. So many connections to Southwest Texas State. You went on to get your MBA at University of Houston in Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
I know very little about that school. How did you end up there?
So I ended up, my dad was a vet, and he had benefits that he passed on to me for education. And he called me and he said, "Hey, I just figured out that I can give you a master's degree if you want to go get it. But here's the catch: you have to get it before you turn 26."
Oh, no pressure there.
25.
Oh. Oh, you got it in 1 year? Impressive.
So I called around and I said, "Okay, well, who will enroll me now? And how can I get this?" And so what the Army did not pay for, Liberty Mutual did. And so I took an entire master's degree in a year. And University of Houston Victoria was able to allow me to take the coursework at such a warp speed to finish the MBA in literally 13 months.
Well, that was an intense year, wasn't it?
Yes. Thank God for my husband and my housekeeper.
Yeah. Yeah. Was this online?
Some of it was, and then some of it was also face-to-face.
Where were you guys living at the time?
We were in Houston at the time, in Sugar Land. So I worked in Liberty Mutual in Sugar Land. And so sometimes I would go right after work to my face-to-face classes. Mm-hmm. And I would also get up at like 4:00 in the morning and take classes. And then I would do a workout on my lunch break. And I also was promoted that year. So it was a very busy year in the Woolcock household.
Now, if the notes I found on you are correct, you really went to college to be able to work in the music industry.
I did.
Okay,
I did.
So what was your grand plan?
I went to school actually at Texas State so that I could work in Texas country promoting like Texas country music. Mm. And I was pulled aside by my college mentor, and she said, "I don't know if you know this, but you're a salesman. You're a salesperson." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Yeah." And she said, "If you want to do sales, I will teach you everything you need to know. And you can go to every concert you ever thought of." She said, "Or you can go promote music." Like, okay. The next thing I knew, I was in her sales program, and she did teach me everything I needed to know and then some. And I really did find out that I really did love doing sales. And Liberty Mutual was one of the companies that partnered with Texas State sales program. And it came down to Coca-Cola and Liberty Mutual. And I realized, no, I think Liberty Mutual and insurance is really what I want to do. And along the way, I have truly fallen in love with insurance, which sounds very strange, I know, to people who are not in insurance. Because I know to many people, insurance sounds like plucking their eyeballs out would be better.
Yes.
I realized that, which is why it takes all kinds of kinds. And you can call me and I will handle it because I'm total insurance.
And that's exactly what we want from our insurance people is, can you just fix this or add this or make, so I like that.
Total geek over it.
There you go. Hey, that's who we want on our side. Then, all right, let's go back to country music concerts. What was the first one you went to?
My very first country music concert was LeAnn Rimes when I was 4 years old.
Nice. Okay. What do you remember of that?
Not a whole lot.
Okay. You remember
the
going?
Next one that I went to was Reba McEntire, and I remember all of that. She wore 13 different outfits.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. And what's the best concert you've ever been to?
Hands down, George Strait.
Yeah. Yep.
Second to that, Garth.
Okay. All right. I like that. Who haven't you seen live?
We actually just talked about this weekend. I want to go see Dolly Parton.
Is she still performing?
She is, but only in like the UK.
Well, so, okay, folks, here's our mission today. We need to send some referrals to Libby to get some new clients to pay for a trip to the UK to go to a Dolly concert. So we're
Yeah.
all on the hook
I
for
need to
that
go back to
today.
Europe to go see Dolly.
I like that. Do
I had to go to
you,
Boston to see George, so why not Europe to see Dolly?
why not? Do you think you missed out on anything by not being a country music promoter?
No, I
Okay.
don't. I
No.
don't.
But would have been cool, but you've been to a fair number of concerts, yes.
Yeah.
The other connection we have is Sugarland. So again, let's think before you were born, okay? So we moved there in 89. We lived there 89 to 93. And our youngest son was born in Fort Bend Community Hospital. And I worked for what was then Home Sports Entertainment, which is now Fox Sports Southwest. And a couple things from Houston. One is, so we moved away in 93, so that's 29, 30 years ago, right? I
You
still,
missed the ice storm of 94.
well, yes, I did. But I've still have not experienced Houston hot since I've left Houston because it's brutal there, the heat. And I miss the food.
Oh, yeah.
And I see on, and I was thinking over the weekends, like, can I find out where in Sugar Land we lived? I'm like, it's not going to matter. So, cause I won't know where you live, cause I don't remember the town much, but, I did see where you worked at Papacitos.
Mm-hmm.
And for folks, if you've never been to Texas and you really want good food, Papacitos, it's the Papa family, Papa family.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife loved Papados, and I love Papacitos, and you couldn't go wrong with either.
Nope.
So
They have a
what was
whole
yep.
slew of restaurants there.
So was that a high school job for you?
High school and college. I
Nice.
started there when I was 17.
Yeah.
And I worked all the way until I started working for Liberty Mutual. Those are really the only two jobs I've ever had.
Really?
Mhm.
Nice.
Mhm.
Then how did you guys move to Sugar Land?
My dad started working for a dealership there. That it was Bill Hurd when we moved there, and now Classic Chevy. And so we moved there when I was, gosh, probably 3 or 4.
Right.
And so I really grew up in and around Sugar Land. And I went to Austin High School there in Sugar Land. They say the sweetest girls in the world are from Sugar Land, so I guess I'm born and bred.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it was a great town just to grow up in, right? Very diverse, very
Yes.
beautiful city. I loved growing up there, and I have very fond memories there. It's changed a lot, just like you said.
Yeah.
It's grown a lot. Like there's a baseball team there now.
There is, yeah, yeah.
It's huge. And I grow back and I'm like, okay, I know my way around, but everything's a little bit different.
Yep.
Being gone for 5 years, so it's all grown up a little bit, but the people are still fabulous. And I have wonderful family still there, and friends that are still there that we get to go visit. But it's still a beautiful little town, and I can't say enough about it. I really loved it.
Yeah, I think the neighborhood we lived in was at the time zone for Fort Bend. Now things changed, and we had a 4-year-old and a newborn, so it would have been a while. But I did love Houston. I moved to Texas, single, and left with a wife and 2 sons. So very, very connected to the state of Texas. I loved it.
Your wife sounds fabulous.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just saying,
Yep.
Texas State alumni,
Yeah.
Texas woman.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I outkicked my coverage, as they say. But yes, but thankfully I got a job in Austin because we met and got married in Austin. And she got there a year before I did. She graduated college and had been working in Austin for a year. And I got a job at the University of Texas, and we met about a year and a half later, running in the same crowd and never been in the same place. And yeah, so it was good to go from that moment on. So I do like that. So Libby, are you named after anybody?
My mom and my dad chose my name. My legal name is Elizabeth with an S, not a Z. So it's misspelled all the time.
Yes.
And they chose that name because it means gift from God. And my parents had a difficult time having children. I have an older brother who unfortunately was stillborn.
Oh.
And so they were very grateful just to have one child and have me be healthy. And and it was a difficult pregnancy for my mom. She had preeclampsia and among other things. And so I was born 6 weeks early as well. And so they named me Elizabeth, gift from God, and that stuck. So back to country music, I was 12 years old when we went to Nashville for the first time for me to sing. And they were trying to get my brand ready. And I was on Music Row, and they said, Elizabeth is too long.
Yep.
And my maiden name is Williams. And they said, we got to keep Williams so that, we got to keep Williams. It's a good last name in this town. But they said, Beth is too short. And Lizzie McGuire was really popular at the time. So they could not keep that as a shortened stage name. And so they said, what about Libby? Libby sounds good. Libby sounds great on stage. So we'll just call you Libby Williams. And that'll be your name from here on out.
Wow.
So at 12 years old, I went from Elizabeth down to Libby, and it stuck.
How close were you to, if you had a contract, how close were you to being a singer?
I did a lot of demo work in Nashville. And so I won't say that I was like knocking on any doors or anything crazy, but I was trying to knock on doors. I was getting there. And I was doing a lot of work up there, but it was ultimately something that I found out was not what I wanted to do. I enjoyed the business part more than I enjoyed being the product. And so I realized that I wanted to sell the product. I didn't want to be the product. And I walked away, and I never went back.
That's probably the roots of you being a salesperson, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you sing much these days?
I do in church. That's
cool.
about it.
All right. And that's good that you get your fix doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's what I was made for, to sing in church, and that's what I use my voice for.
Is that why you're a fan of reality shows? Do you watch the music shows and just grade everybody like Simon Cowell does?
No. Because I know the background of how they work. I don't. And I will say I was chosen to be on Star Search the very last season before it was canceled.
Wow.
And so that's the one where I'm like, this is just all strange how this all works out.
Nice. That would have been interesting. Where was that? Was that being filmed out in LA?
I was, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So did you sing around Sugar Land?
I did.
What kind
I
of
sang all around Texas.
Okay. What kind of cool places did you end up singing at?
The coolest one I think was Johnny High's Opry. So there's this Opry circuit in Texas, which is actually a really cool like circuit that you get to know when you're there. And it's invite only out there. So when you get to a certain place, your name is kind of known, and you get invited to these different places. And the names that had been invited to that Opry were like Miranda Lambert and Casey Musgraves, and a couple of different ones that at that point were really up and coming. And Miranda Lambert had just hit the scene. And so when I got invited to that one, I was like, ooh, this is cool. I feel cool.
God, I can imagine you being in the tabloids on your third marriage and us reading about you and go, who is this woman and why 3 times?
Why is she such a mess?
Who knows? It could have been you, right, Libby?
It could have been me.
Chris is glad it didn't happen, but
I'm sure glad it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's funny that you say you would rather sell the product than be the product, because usually it's people who have a passion and they want to turn it into a business, find out the passion goes away pretty fast.
Yeah. It is interesting that I loved music. Don't get me wrong. I still do love music, but finding out though that I was not the one that I needed my face on the side of the 18-wheeler, and I didn't need my face on the albums and all those things. It was a lot of stress that I just was not prepared for at that age. And I don't think I ever would have been prepared for that, frankly.
Yeah.
But now even in my business, like I brand my agency. And I love that this agency has, Comparion and has my name attached to it. And I love the work that I've done to have people say, no, you want to go to Libby. Libby's the one who can build these policies for you, because I've worked really hard to know all the knowledge that I have and have the experience that I have and have all the letters behind my name, right? And I do like that. I love what I do, and there's not any pressure on me though to keep this afloat though, because it's all been done organically.
Nice.
And I've learned along the way how to build this business and how to really serve my clients, I think. And luckily, my clients have really learned that I'm here to serve them.
Yep. No,
and
I like
just keep
that.
coming back.
All right, let's put a little bow on you and Chris here, because we got to it a little bit earlier than I normally get to it, because I always ask people, and I think you pretty much answered it, how did you meet your spouse? And you both tell the story the same way. So would Chris tell it the same way that he dropped the L word and you kept breaking up with him?
He's a little bit more dramatic about it than I am, but yes.
What makes him more dramatic about it? Does it still bother him to this day?
He's like, and then she broke up with me. And he's like, and then the third time, I wasn't going to tell her. I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah.
And he's right. He wasn't. He was like, no, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. I learned my lesson.
Yeah. Not till I see you at the altar will I tell you I love you,
so
honey.
The third time I had to do it, and I will say this, the third time around 3 months, which is around the time that like I always was like, nope. He was like, why don't we go see my parents? Well, his parents were living in the United Kingdom at the time.
Oh.
Okay. So I had to hop on a plane and cross an ocean to go see his parents. And I, of course, had met them, but I had never spent like that much time. And they're fabulous people and I adore them. But when you're 19 years old and I don't think I might have been 18 years old, but when you're crossing an ocean to go spend 2 weeks with people, and you're like, okay, this is either going to be really good or really bad. Thankfully, it was really good.
So you guys met when you were 12. What grade is that? 6th grade?
I was in 7th grade and
7th grade.
9th grade, and I was the middle schooler dating the high schooler. It was scandalous.
You were made for country music right there. You were scandalous long before you were popular. Yeah.
It was scandalous.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So the first real date was where?
At the movie theater. We went and saw The Ring.
Oh, jeez. Tell me, you at least held hands in the theater, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because I was scared.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. And when did you know this was going to work out and this was a good thing?
When I was 20 years old and I was like, this is Chris Woolcock when he texted me.
Yeah. Hey, he gets a point. He gets a point for finding you, doesn't he?
Right.
Yeah.
He surely gets a point for tenacity and resilience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we guys, when we find somebody we want to hang out with, we will do things to do that, to make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good for Chris.
And thank God for it.
Yeah. Otherwise, who knows what schmuck you'd be married to right now? Would you and I even be talking?
I wouldn't be married. I'll just say that. I wouldn't be married.
I like that. I like that. So, all right, folks, if this storm did not get your attention for your home and auto insurance, it should. So reach out to your agent. If you're not happy with what you hear or you don't have an agent, please reach out to Libby. We have put her number on the screen here throughout the show. So give her a buzz. Even if you've already got a policy, she'll answer your questions. That much I know, and we'll help you out. And that's just, you want somebody to look at it. Or first of all, make sure you look at it. First of all, find it. It's sure it's saved in a file somewhere, somehow, but you might want to pull that out and look at it. So that's their homework assignment for the week, right, Libby?
Yeah, find it.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do. Just find it. That's the first thing.
Yeah, okay. And then step number 2 for the weekend is look at it.
Call me.
Yes, there you go. And call Libby. So, Libby, it's been a blast. Love the stories. I did not see this country music singer story coming about, but that's why I love this show, because I learn something new every week. So, anyways, I've enjoyed having you on the show. Good luck with the insurance world and your chapter of the Hall of Famers. And, folks, you don't need to be in Fayetteville to come visit this chapter. It is Zoom only. every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. So if you want to meet a fun bunch of folks and get some business done, please join her Hall of Famers chapter. And Libby, I think I'll either see you guys this week or next week on Zoom on my visit.
Yes, sir.
Right. And we'll see everybody next time on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.